So in this session, I want us to discover something together. And what I want us to discover is, how do we move through those experiences in life that feel painful, that feel scary, that feel essentially like suffering? How do we move through these experiences with wisdom and with clarity and with grace, instead of the way that we usually handle it, which is the same way that we handle it when we were 2 years old, through temper tantrums, through pushing back, through lashing out, through all of these unconscious reactive patterns, not through any fault of our own, but just because of our ignorance, because we don't know any better. So all of these experiences that we can call fear or depression or anxiety or things going wrong or stress, all of these I'm going to collectively refer to as suffering for our purpose. Okay? So all of these experiences, if we learn to move through them with wisdom, what we're going to discover is that they have just a wealth of blessing for us, a wealth of gifts for us. And if we're not too sure about this, we can really just take a moment and contemplate and think about, like, all those people who have experienced tremendous suffering and have come out as some of the kindest and most gracious and most gentle people. I often find in my life that those people who I look up to, those people who I admire, those people who are an inspiration to me, that they have gone, if you just look under the surface, and many of these are so more than willing to share with you their journey. So if you look under the surface, you would see that they have gone through hell to arrive where they are. And they're not afraid of hell. They're not afraid of that suffering. So I want us here today to discover something that will allow us to move with the same wisdom, with the same fearlessness, through fear, through hells, our own personal hells, our own experiences of disappointment, our own experiences of letdown. And the way that we can start to disassemble this is by realizing that all of these different experiences of suffering, whether it be anxiety or depression or feeling disappointed or feeling betrayed or any of these, regardless of what it is, they all have one common root. And when we find out what this root is, we can actually approach these experiences with wisdom. We can approach them with clarity, and we can approach them in such a way that they add to us instead of cripple us, that they expand our spirit instead of killing it. But before we do that, I want you to just reflect on your own life, because many times we don't really recognize the suffering that we're experiencing, because in our societies it's very unpopular to talk about things that are not going right. We'd like to talk about all the things that are going right, all the beautiful things, all the happy things, all the things that have, sunshine and butterflies and good feelings. And if we really, really take a pause and we look at what our human experience is like, we will see that actually it's not just that. That's just one side of it. But we also have the whole other side. You see, the thing about being in this human experience is that it is a duality. It is always a duality. There's always going to be an up and a down. And unless we can first come to admit and realize that this is what's happening in our lives, then we can never really embody that wisdom that allows us to move through life in the way that just makes it one of the most blissful, joyous, and empowering and expansive experiences. So let's do this. I want you to just reflect on this statement. This is one of the first statements that the Buddha made after he became enlightened. Whether you believe in the Buddha or not, it doesn't matter. I want you to reflect on this statement. So as one of the first things that he uttered when, after his enlightenment, after he awoke and realized the nature of reality, the nature of truth, is he said, life is suffering. Why would an awakened being that is awakened at such a level that it has just influenced thousands and millions and maybe even billions of people since he was on earth, why would such a being, as one of his first teachings of wakefulness, say that life is suffering? So let's discover this directly in our own experience, because if we take a look at one day, or let's say even 1 week, any time period of your life, and tell me what you see. If we were to graph it out, and we're gonna say, here's the timeline, and here's your level of happiness, or fulfillment, or love, or joy, or peace even. Doesn't matter what we call these, these are all facets of one experience, one collective sense of feeling like, yes, feeling plugged in, feeling alive, feeling what we call yourself, feeling connected to yourself. So how does that graph look like for you? Is it just like one straight line of perfect peace at 100%, or is it one straight line at 50%? If it is, then you're likely not listening to this video, and you're likely dead, or you are in a realm very different from this one. So if I look at my day, I can easily recognize that it goes up and down all the time. I may wake up in the morning with high spirits, with enthusiasm, with joy, and then I will open some email, or I'll look at something that's happening in the business, or I'll see a Skype message from one of my managers, and I'll see, oh, something's gone wrong, and down I go. And not always. I mean, sometimes that's not what happens, and sometimes we have a higher level of consciousness that allows us to perceive things at a different level. But inevitably, no matter what level of consciousness you hang out in, you will bump into these moments that throw you for a spin. And these are not here by accident. These are here by design, because as you look at the fabric of human life, you will see that it is full of challenges. But why? Why challenges? And why not just pure bliss? Well, the challenges bring out some incredible things in us. They bring out our highest potential. They bring out qualities and abilities that we never knew were part and fabric of what we are. So, recognizing that this kind of pattern exists, that life is indeed interwoven with this experience we can refer to collectively as suffering, we can pause and also say, but wait a minute. If God is love, as all religions and all mystics profess that God is love, unconditional, pure, beyond any understanding of love that we can ever muster as human beings, if God is that love that gave life to all things, what kind of a God would this be if he also purposely interwove suffering and pain into life? Why not just give us all of the abilities all up front? So to recognize this, we'll have to come back to what we started with in the beginning. There's a root from which all of this suffering springs. And that root is not rooted in the fabric of life itself, but it's rooted in the way that we interact with life. So what is that root? What is the root of all suffering? The root of all suffering is actually resistance. It's the resistance against what is. In the beginning, it may not be so obvious that that's the cause, but try this. Try to, let's even just take a really, really basic and silly example. Take this hand and push it into this one. You see, like, the more that you push and the more that this one pushes back and resists it, the more discomfort you're going to discover in the palm of this hand. And what happens if it releases? What happens if it releases completely? So how do we apply that same understanding to our life? How do we apply that same understanding to our experiences of suffering and contraction? This understanding, by the way, is not new. It is a big part of many of martial arts, many of these traditions of warriorship. They understand that the way to conquer is not to resist, but to move and use the enemy's energy against themselves, against the enemy. So how do we do that with life? So the way that we do this is actually very simple. And I want you to just follow along with me here. When a situation arises that's causing you to contract, all you need to do is go the entirely counterintuitive way and relax into it. Relax in the face of it. Relax as if, you know, in Christianity, this idea is very popular. I mean, popular, it's very misunderstood too, but this is the idea of surrender. This is the idea of letting go and letting God. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you don't do what is yours to do. What it means is that you move with life. So let's take an example. Let's say that a business transaction has just gone wrong and you perceive it as a loss and you're feeling this sense of contraction within you. What do you do? So typically what we do is we start to struggle against it. We start to say, nope, I shouldn't feel this way. No, it's all right. If you study personal development, then you'll have all kinds of arsenals to try and make this feeling go away. So anytime we feel pain, we want it to go away. We push against it, we resist it, we say no. But everything that you say no to becomes embedded into your energy field, into your body, whatever your belief system allows for. It gets embedded in your aura. And when it does that, it doesn't leave when you stop thinking about it. When you say no to something and you push it down, what starts to happen is that all of these no's, all of this stress, all of this contraction accumulates. Not in your conscious mind, it accumulates subconsciously. It accumulates in the place where you say no and you push it away. Where does it go? You haven't released it. Where does it go? It goes into a storehouse of all of the things that you never want to be true, and yet a part of your mind still believes that it's true. And when that's happening, we amass this load of stress, this load of suffering, and we can come to a place, as I have, where one more straw starts to break the camel's back. One more straw. This is where people commit suicide. This is where people start to have nervous breakdowns. This is where people burn out. This is where people ruin their marriages, ruin their families, ruin their businesses, ruin their lives. Why? Because of this. Because none of that so-called darkness was ever released. Instead, it's accumulated in our subconscious mind. So how do we release it? And so the way to release it is actually very simple. As you experience the onslaught of suffering, pain, you simply take a breath and you say, more. I want more. It wants to come up. It wants to be expressed. It wants to come up and out. Let it. More. I want all of you. I want all of you. I want to experience this fully. More. And this is not in any kind of sadistic way. You are not fighting it. You are not trying to do anything with it. Instead, you are just letting what is be through you. You're not saying no, you're saying yes. It is, and so we say yes. And we allow it. And when you allow it, It depends to which degree you are able to relax. If your tension is here and you're able to relax to this degree, it will take a certain amount of time for that steam, for that pressure cooker to release its load. If you are able to relax like this, you can have a transcendent experience that is beyond all words, because at that point, suffering turns into bliss. Now, I've had that experience maybe once or twice, because I'm now a master at this, but the way masters move through life is whoo. And oftentimes when we try to change things, when we try to create things, we're trying to even to manifest things, we're trying to use law of attraction and all of these tools and all of these aids, but we leave that door closed. We leave the pressure cooker cooking. And so we wonder why things are not working. Why is it still a struggle? Why aren't the things that I want manifesting? Why is God so against me? He's not. But you have to take this step first. You have to take that leap of faith and open up and allow the floodgates to swing open and drown you, knowing that all along it is just sensation in your body. It is just thought in your mind. It is just energy, emotion moving through you. You're safe. You're unharmed. And the more you're able to relax into it, the more you're able to open up and say yes, and say more, and say, come at me, come through me, be free to express yourself. The more you say that to all of that emotional turmoil, the more freedom you begin to experience. And you can even start to come to experiencing a sense of enjoyment. There is suffering, but you are enjoying it because you are so open, you're so relaxed, you are so non-threatened by it. What would it be like if every experience that you now fear and want to hide and want to push away, if all of a sudden the sense of threat that it seemed to cause you would dissipate? All of a sudden you can walk into the fire and know that you will be always unharmed. We start to discover our own indestructibility. We start to discover that clarity, that wisdom, that power that allows us to serve and to love and to bless and to be an example and to be a force in the world that shows that truly God is love, that truly life is suffering, but life is fully love, is fully joy, is fully peace, and we never throw our peace, our love, our joy away just because a bump or a blip on the screen of consciousness has caused us to waver. It's okay to waver. It's okay to stumble. But we can also discover in ourselves that we need not flinch in the face of suffering.